Hey everyone that's joined so far. We're just about to get started with our class today, which is our second class on reworking your 2020 fundraising plan. As you're all joining, I'm actually about to launch another poll. So I'm just curious as to if you're planning on doing a virtual fundraising event and incorporating that into your fundraising plan. Just would love to hear from you. We are going to chat about it briefly, but again, like I mentioned briefly during our last class, is that we have a whole class that's just for virtual fundraising, and I have a special discount for you guys if you're interested in taking that as well. So it seems like everyone who's responded so far, it's about 50% of you say, yes, you're definitely planning on doing virtual fundraising, and then 50% of you are still looking into it and figuring it out. So that's really, really great insights as we dive into our discussion for today. So I am actually going to end this poll. If anyone else wants to vote quick, feel free to do so, but I'm going to close this out in just a moment. All right. So I'm going to share the results with you just so you can see. And let's go ahead and get started with our class today. So hoping can everyone hear me okay? I just want to make sure before we start diving in. I'm also going to open up the chat and just to say hi. All right, so throughout our conversation today, again, this is all going to be recorded. You will get the recording and the slides from today's conversation, as well as the link to that downloadable fundraising planning guide and calendar template. For those of you who attended or are attending, please let me know if you didn't get the recording from Tuesday. I sent it out on Tuesday, actually, so you should have the recording and the slides already, as well as the link to the template. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive into today's discussion. You guys know me. I'm Candace. I manage success in education here at CauseVox. CauseVox, for those of you who are unaware, CauseVox is a digital fundraising platform that helps you raise more with less effort. So whatever you're doing, whether it's making your donation page more optimized or crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, virtual fundraising events as well, you can do all of that with CauseVox and more. For today's class, we're really going to be diving into plugging in all of those pieces to your fundraising plan. So completing that goals worksheet that we went over last time, and then actually crafting the whole fundraising plan. Our third class is individually scheduled. It's a one-on-one consultation where we'll go over your fundraising plans. You'll have some time with me to ask any questions that you still have from our class, and yeah, hopefully help you optimize all of your fundraising plans so that you can fundraise well this year and beyond. For our course overview, again, you're going to get access to the slides and recordings, one-on-one consultation, the fundraising plan resource guide. So we actually have a whole written guide as well if you're interested. There's the SMART Goals worksheet template and the fundraising calendar template as well, which are the templates that we'll be working through today. And let's dive right in. So we're really tackling a few things today. The first being completing your goals worksheet. The second, finalizing your fundraising plan for 2020 and beyond. And then we're going to talk a little bit about measuring plan success and how to adapt to that. And the most important thing when you're thinking about crafting a fundraising plan is that it's actually a living document that you'll want to continue to come back to and update, as well as, you know, as opportunities arise, you know, make some changes and adapt. So we'll definitely be talking about that later. So you're going to have a lot of takeaways. You should have your whole fundraising plan and goal worksheet filled out by the end of this class. All right, so last week we talked a little bit about the digital fundraising cycle and how fundraising, especially digitally, is really an ongoing process where you're constantly trying to build your audience further so you have more people basically in your audience to then nurture and then hopefully convert into donors. So the more people that you have following your cause, the more people you're engaging with regularly, the more people you're more likely to get them to donate online or donate offline when that becomes more of a thing again. So we're going to talk about some of those strategies and working them into your fundraising plan. So the template that we're mostly focusing on today is the actual fundraising calendar, and plugging in all of these pieces, including all of your fundraising activities, the costs, estimated income, and aligning that with your goals as well. And so first off, though, I want us to finish up talking about the goals worksheet today. So we're going to dive right into that. So if you haven't already, you can download that fundraising planning guide and calendar. Let me paste that again in the chat. Give me one moment here. And so for any of you who haven't accessed this already, I'm going to paste it again in the chat, and I'll also include this in the email follow-up. Sorry, it's just taking a minute to load here. Here we go. There it is. So feel free to go ahead and download that in the link in the chat. Okay, so first off, completing your SMART 2020 goals worksheet. So we're going to be diving into not just the strategies, but actually how to attain your fundraising goals using this worksheet. So it's really all about focusing on which focus areas you're diving into. We talked about donor acquisition, donor retention, and increasing gift size as focus areas. So building that out a little bit further and thinking through the ways that you want to engage with those three topics, mapping out any obstacles in your way, as well as, setting some good targets. So really, when you're thinking about your fundraising plan, the whole backbone is this goals worksheet, because you want your fundraising activities to make sure that they align with your fundraising goals. So basically, you're just on track to meet all of your goals using your fundraising activities. You want those two things to be in perfect alignment so that you're also not, and then if you find anything on your fundraising plan that you're not really sure why it's there, it just seemed like something that you wanted to add on, that's always a good thing to refocus and figuring out, what is this actual activity helping me accomplish? So that's really why the goals worksheet is so important, is making sure that you're getting the most out of all of your fundraising activities. So we talked about some suggested fundraising growth strategies. So a few of the donor retention ones that I mentioned is making sure that you get a good thank you out to your donors, potentially even with just an automatic receipt that's has some good content on it within 48 hours, making monthly giving a priority, asking for a second gift within 90 days actually of the first gift. Acquiring new donors, you can always optimize those donation forms. It'll make all of your digital fundraising more successful if those forms are optimized, whether you're pointing them through your website or you're doing a virtual fundraising event or more. Peer-to-peer virtual fundraising helps to drive new donor acquisition, as well as activating some partners to fundraise for you. Increasing gift size. So you probably do want to get a match for any major upcoming initiatives. That'll help you increase gift size by about 50%. And then communicating impact is always a good way to get people to give more when they're really focused on the impact that they can create with their gift. Takes it more, their focus away from just arbitrary dollar amounts. And then also, targeted asks to upgrade them effectively to the next giving level. So that's just a few strategies I recommend working into your plan in one way or the other. And you can do this, a few ways. So we talked a little bit about last time about figuring out how much you actually need to raise by assessing what gaps you have in your budget. So, if you haven't done that already, I do recommend you taking a look at what gaps there are in your budget, and then figuring out how much you actually need to operate for the rest of the year. And that will give you a great insight into, and then, you know, of course, calculating what's already been covered by grants or anything else, any other funds that are either pledged or whatnot, and then figuring out how much you actually need throughout the year. Now, let's dive a little bit into some of those smaller fundraising goals that you're gonna set to make sure that you reach that macro fundraising goal. So that total fundraising goal that you need to fill for the year. Let's break that out into those 3 different segments of donor acquisition, donor retention, and gift size. So the thing that you want to take with any goal that you ever set, whether it's one of these micro goals for your fundraising plan or for each of your fundraising activities, you want to make sure that your goals are very specific, because that will help both you really understand what you're aiming for, and then also that trickles down to really helping your donors comprehend what it is that you're asking them to accomplish. And so, you know, having a specific fundraising goal like $10,000, even if you're not sure you're going to meet it, that's very important, just because it gives you a framework to work off of, and then you can always adjust later on. Again, when you do have those specific goals, they're also measurable. When you have goals in place, they should also be kind of realistic. So you want to consider goals that are actually going to potentially be attainable. You know, if you've never done a digital fundraising campaign online before, probably starting out with trying to raise $500,000 is going to be a little bit of a jump. So I would try your best to sort of work off of the information that you have to set a goal that you think is potentially realistic and attainable. Also time bound. So you want to make sure, especially when it comes to fundraising planning, that you have some time frames set for you to achieve those goals in, just because, you know, that can keep you on track to actually meet your goals through the end of the year. So let's start filling in that goal worksheet. So within your micro goals, you want to list out your focus areas and then detail out those specific strategies that you're going to take to reach those goals. So here's just an example of a good micro goal that's like under the SMART principles. It's very specific and attainable as well. So a goal that you could have for your organization is to acquire 5% more new donors this year than you have in previous years. So one strategy is to set a goal to organize 1 major fundraiser per quarter and 1 fundraiser per month, 1 smaller fundraising initiative per month. Maybe you want to plan a peer-to-peer campaign, because that's great with new donor acquisition. And then as far as helping you drive more contacts so that you can, you know, hopefully nurture and then convert them into donors, maybe you want to run some Facebook and Instagram ads to build your online audience and start driving more traffic to your website. So that's just a few examples of strategies that you'll want to outline when it comes to filling out that goals worksheet. Here's another example, is just to increase the average gift size by 3%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but of course this really adds up over the course of a year when you're doing a lot of new fundraising initiatives and acquiring more donors as well. So, you know, one thing would be to incorporate giving levels into all of your online fundraising initiatives, putting the focus more on the impact, for example, and having some suggested levels of giving that can kind of upsell your donors, for example. Also, maybe asking returning donors in those targeted asks. So you might want to think about maybe scheduling once a quarter, having some targeted outreach to any new donors, and then having, or any returning donors, and just asking them for an increased gift amount. And also, you know, considering doing 1 recurring giving as well. So with each of these strategies that you outline in your document, you're probably going to run into some obstacles. So maybe you don't have recurring donations available on your donation form, for example. Or maybe you're just not really sure that your donation form is converting very well. So you'll want to go through and just take a look at each of these strategies and think through anything else that's currently in the way, so you can sort of plan for that ahead of time, and either advocate for the resources that you need, or you know, start looking for some software solutions, and more. So, you know, maybe a virtual fundraising event sounds like a great idea, but you realize you just don't have the staff time. And so that could be an obstacle that you list out, and then you can kind of see how you can tackle each of those strategies, um, and really prepare well. And then thirdly, so with each of these strategies, you're going to want to have some SMART goals attached to them, so that you know exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So whether you're doing targeted ads, you know, how many people do you want them to reach? How many people do you want to convert into donors, for example? Maybe try and think through your own donation form right now, see what the conversion rate is, and then try switching, and then what exactly % increase are you looking for? All of these things can just keep you on track to make sure that you're reaching your goals, and you'll probably come back to them and change them over time as you get more information, basically. So if you're doing digital fundraising and being really specific about what you're looking to do for the first time, it's all about just starting from somewhere and then working your way up, because, you know, maybe you realize after running a bunch of digital ads that you need to change that target, and that's okay. But just having those targets outlined at first can really give you a good guide to work off of. And so let's talk a little bit about these examples. So I just talked through these examples before. I actually think that this is a good slide for you to come back to when you're looking at actually filling out that, that goal sheet. So just some examples of increasing donor retention and donor acquisition, and what some of those realistic targets or potential targets could look like for you. So once you have your goal sheet filled out, then you're really going to get started building out your fundraising plan. So an action item for you is to finish creating your budget and then detailing out all of your micro fundraising goals in the goal worksheet. As a next step, because we did talk a little bit about obstacles, I think it's really important to assess gaps in your resources. So let's talk through some of the ways that you can actually find those. So just a few statistics here. So in 2015 through 2018, staff shortage was the #1 challenge for nonprofits preventing digital advancement. So if you feel like you're a little behind digitally, you're not alone. But it also could be due to, you know, not having the capacity basically and the time to invest into digital. So that is a potential obstacle that you can be running into. And you want to think through ways, whether it's, you know, maybe prioritizing digital, you know, and rerouting some of your resources. Maybe you have some volunteers that you can actually get on your digital team to address that staff shortage. But especially now, especially like, I mean, just some of the organizations I've chatted with, they've had some layoffs as well. So I think this year, especially, staff shortage is something that is a hurdle that you might be running into. In 2019, budget constraints actually was the #1 challenge for nonprofits preventing digital advancement. So if you also feel that your tight budget, especially even now, has gotten even tighter, you're also not alone. I think that there's some ways that you can tackle this obstacle as well. And then nearly 31% of organizations describe their organization structure as poor or under average. So meaning that it's really hard to either, you know, move initiative forward, or There's just not the systems in place already for you to start building up your digital fundraising. And so if you find yourself there, you're not alone either. And there are ways to sort of tackle that and manage it. So when you're thinking about fundraising planning, it's important to be realistic with, you know, what you're working with, because in order for your fundraising plan to be actionable, you have to make it feasible and workable within your constraints. So when you're thinking about making your fundraising plan possible, you want to start by listing out all of your fundraising resources. So thinking through who is available, how many hours, what software you have, and then, you know, considering what your overall budget for fundraising and marketing looks like, because, you know, this might be the first time that you're really building out a more extensive digital fundraising budget. And so considering those constraints and then how to expand that as well. So when you're assessing your staff, you want to think about how many people are on the fundraising and marketing staff at your organization. List them out, list out any volunteers that you have at your disposal, because I think sometimes volunteers can go overlooked, where you might be able to get a volunteer to run your social media for a few months, you know. So think through who's in your networks of volunteers. Think through your board members. Your board members are there to support you guys. So if you want to tap your board to do peer-to-peer fundraising, for example, or have them do phone calls to follow up with, you know, any $250 and over donors, you know, think through who's available on your team, on your board as well, and then any partners that you have to engage. So all of these, but just by assessing this can give you a better idea of what's actually possible at your organization. And likewise, just thinking through how many hours realistically they have to dedicate to, you know, your fundraising objectives. And so, you know, considering what that actually looks like and how many hours, because then once you have that many hours sort of estimated, you can start plugging that into your fundraising plan as well, and making sure that, you know, it's possible for you and your team to actually pull off a big virtual event, for example. So yeah, there's just that example right there with the staff and the hours listed out. So I recommend that you do that at your organization. So just start listing out your fundraising staff and then hours of week commitments. Number two that you want to think about, especially now more than ever, is your software. So your software package becomes really, really important, especially with the rapid switch to digital. So you want to take a little bit of inventory. Think about what marketing tools that you have in place. Do you use something to schedule social media? Do you have, you know, do you have a CRM or donor management system? Fundraising platforms, are you using one or are you using multiple? Consider what you currently have in your back pocket. Any payment processors that you're using, that is just kind of helpful to assess what fees you're incurring on your donations as well. And then thinking through how you're analyzing the activity. So, you know, a lot of nonprofits I've been seeing recently have been diving more into Google Analytics and getting that set up on their website so that they can see, you know, really track more of the activity. Facebook Pixel has donor conversion tracking, so you can really find out if your ads are actually converting donors. And that's just a few examples, but really take a look, list out everything that you can think of as far as what your software looks like. And then take inventory, because a lot of the organizations I chat with, they may be using Salesforce, but they're not really using it to the full extent. Or they might have, you know, a sort of dormant MailChimp account. You might want to take another look at that and see what opportunities you have to really expand your use of that existing platform, especially CauseVox. I mean, I know a lot of users that come and do one thing a year with us where they might not even realize that they can run digital fundraising all year long on our platform. So just kind of assess, list everything out and assess which platforms you have, and then take a look and see what else you can do with those. Because if you don't have to change systems, I think that's good. But yeah, so if you don't have to change something, it's easier not to. But that being said, there's also probably tools that you're using that you've grown out of. So if you feel like a tool is sort of holding you back, or you're just not getting the conversion rates that really will help you grow your digital fundraising, then that's when it's really worth finding something new. Also cutting ties with anything you're not actually using very much as well. I know there's a lot of people that kind of just keep something around just because it's there. But if you're just not using it, I would also, and it doesn't provide any new value to you, you can also get rid of it. And yeah, also then assessing what new needs that you have that you need to get filled. So virtual fundraising, for example, does present a new set of software needs. And so I'll actually go over that since that seems like something that's going to be important for you guys. So when you do a virtual fundraiser, at least how I've talked with so many organizations that have done their virtual gala or their virtual walk, or other types of virtual events with CauseVox so far, it usually is a combination of a few different software tools. So they'll use CauseVox for their actual virtual fundraising platform, and getting, you know, let's say peer-to-peer pages set up for table captains for their gala, for example. So they're asking their friends and family to donate to their virtual table via their personal fundraising page. So that's just one example. And then they'll also use event streaming. So you do want to think about what other tools you need in order to stream. If you are doing live streaming, what you're using for that. And then maybe any other software tools that can enhance the experience for your community. So there might be a few plugins that you can use, or tools that you can use to actually make it easier for you, so you're spending less time figuring out data importing, for example, like through Zapier. So Zapier is a tool that you can use to just automatically push data into a lot of different CRMs and donor management systems. So whatever you can do to also simplify and make your virtual fundraising as easy as possible, that's what I recommend doing. I think it can get really, really complicated really quickly if you're trying to work with to exactly translate an in-person event digitally. I think if something doesn't quite fit in, maybe it's a good time to just skip it, because, you know, you do want to make it easy for you and your team to actually fundraise online virtually. So when you're thinking about choosing a virtual fundraising platform, these are my recommendations. You definitely want to make sure that it's easy to set up. So for the peer-to-peer fundraising as well, but also for you, like you don't want to spend a lot of time working with something that you're not comfortable with, hard to navigate. You want to make sure that it's really, really easy for you to set up your virtual fundraising page, as well as having peer-to-peer capabilities and making sure that that's as easy as possible for those people who are signing up to fundraise for you. Also think through content and sponsors. You probably do have sponsorships, whether your event is in person and you're converting it to a virtual fundraiser, or you're just going to try a new type of virtual fundraising campaign. You probably still want to get some sponsors for that. So you want to make sure that you can still sort of feature your sponsors front and center on the page. You also want to make sure that it's really easy to brand. So, you know, some platforms, it's, you don't really, it's kind of, your brand doesn't shine through, where like on CauseVox, you can really customize it, have your own logo and color scheme and everything, and really put a lot of your branding and personalized content on there. And then also pre-fill info for your fundraisers. So again, it's all about making it really easy for your fundraisers to sign up. Of course, mobile optimized. About 65% of the people that are going to come to your page are going to be on their phone. So definitely want to make sure you have a platform that's mobile optimized. And then also thinking through potentially mobile payments. So Apple and Google Pay, big trends right now. And that is one-click donation. So people don't have to get their credit card out. So also helps increase conversion rate. And then sort of along with that, just as easy as possible to donate, making sure you don't have too many form fields. It's easy to navigate to the page, find it, donate, and have those automatic receipts as well. So when you're looking for a virtual fundraising platform, those are a few of the things that I recommend looking out for. And then for live streaming, so I figured we would talk about this briefly. So with virtual fundraising, I don't think it's actually necessary to have a live stream. I know a lot of like walkathons, for example, that really just ran it all on digital. There wasn't really a live streaming component. But for something more of like a virtual gala, you're probably going to do some live streaming. So one of the things that I've chatted with a lot of our customers about is actually how they did their live streaming. And some of them have pre-recorded the whole program, sort of acted like it was live. So, you know, when I watch Late Night with Conan O'Brien, it says it's live, or Jimmy Kimmel Live, you know, it's not actually live. They pre-recorded everything and then they're presenting it as if it was live. So I would consider doing that. It just kind of takes a lot of the stress off your plate and make sure that everything goes really smoothly. And then just play it live when you are doing that live stream. So YouTube is a great thing that, a great tool that you can do that with, is just having that pre-recording set live. And then, you know, you can always mix it up with like pre-recorded and live content, and consider doing both. Also, one of the things that I really recommend, a lot of people want to, you know, translate a whole big event online. And I would just say a great way to do that really well is to actually break it up into shorter, separate sessions. So if you typically have, you know, a panel discussion and then a keynote speaker and then, you know, a band or something, you know, consider having that event broken up into different sessions that people can register for and then attend, if it's too long, basically. So kind of mitigate that Zoom fatigue, for example. And then just try to make it as engaging as possible, ask people questions, interact with them in live chat, sort of give people the feel that they're actually part of something. And then, yeah, just try to integrate it onto as many pages and platforms as possible. So something with like, oh, people could, I'll just do a Facebook Live. If you're not embedding that on everything, you know, you're definitely going to isolate some of your viewership, for example. So try to embed whatever it is you're using for live streaming on your website, on your fundraising platform page, and the like, just so that you're targeting people where they are. So if someone's not on Facebook, they're still, you know, invited to see it. Okay, so then when you're thinking about choosing a live stream platform, I do have a few recommendations. So I actually think YouTube Live is pretty great. It's very easy to embed anywhere, easy to play a pre-recorded video. That being said, it's kind of hard to switch from that sort of format to an actual live session. So if you want something that's a little bit more dynamic, I would choose Zoom, because that does have a lot of live interaction, sort of like how we're doing right now. You can do a webinar, and then do maybe breakout rooms so that people do have that opportunity to interact and kind of face-to-face virtually, and have some smaller, more intimate gatherings via breakout rooms. And then Facebook Live is good too. It still is embeddable, but it's just like, if you're just running it on Facebook Live, you're probably going to isolate your non-Facebook users. So just to kind of keep that in mind. But there's tons of other options, but these are the most cost-effective ones, and the easiest to integrate. So That's what I recommend. And then as far as other software goes, you can think through what other things can enhance the virtual fundraiser experience. For example, if you are doing something like a virtual walkathon, CauseVox has Strava integrations available so that basically your fundraisers can use their iPhone or their Apple Watch or Fitbit or whatever they're doing, go for a run, and then upload that activity and show their exact time, their mileage, their even, I think it tracks elevation. And so having those integrations available could be really exciting for both your fundraisers and for you to track your virtual walkathon activities better, just as one example. And then you also want to think about making data reconciliation, again, as easy as possible. So maybe looking into using a tool like Zapier. So with CauseVox, you're able to push donor data directly into a lot of other platforms, including Boomerang, Little Green Light, Salesforce, Kindful, MailChimp, Constant Contact, QuickBooks, and so many more. There's like 2,000 applications that Zapier works with. So kind of considering tools like that just make your life easier. And then also thinking through online auction software, if that's going to be something that you pursue. We're not necessarily recommending a lot of online auctions right now. We think it's kind of hard to even, like, you know, small businesses are having a hard time. They're probably not going to donate as much as they have previously. So it's our recommendation that you maybe think about skipping the auction this year, because it's also takes a lot of time and effort to put together. But, you know, thinking through if you are doing that online auction software, and then also thinking through if you need more more integrations into your website as far as your virtual event goes. So Nicholas House, for example, has this great landing page they built out right on their website. They actually integrated a lot of features from within CauseVox onto it. So there's that progress bar. That's actually a real-time update of their activity if any donations are made through CauseVox. Also further down on their page, they embedded the donation form connected with their campaign right onto their website. You can also see how they really just personalize this whole landing page to be really dynamic with peer-to-peer fundraising options. And then they have all the different registrations. So they have a bunch of panel discussions and a big virtual event agenda, and they're having people register separately. So just one example of how they're doing that. So do you need a landing page like this? You know, you might want to think about that as you're looking into planning that type of virtual event and making sure that you have the capacity to do that. Okay, so then really when you're thinking about software, it really is, I can't emphasize how important it is to have great digital fundraising tools. So you want to make sure that whatever digital fundraising tool you're picking is going to make digital fundraising easy for you to get it up and running as quick as possible. Just overall take the stress out of fundraising, where you don't want to be dealing with a clunky and complicated platform. Think through ways that you can keep all of your digital fundraising initiatives under one roof. I think this is really really important as well. So you're not bouncing back and forth between a bunch of different platforms, and you just want to make sure it's as streamlined as possible. Also, reporting and admin tasks, just make sure that it's easy. And then, of course, you know, helping you drive more donations with conversion optimized donation forms. So no clunk for your donors as well. And then also provides you with the support you need to stand up digital fundraising well and quickly, and then, you know, also continue to support you throughout the whole process. So that's something that we're really excited to do here at CauseVox. We do onboarding. So it helps you, we do a series of 3 one-on-one onboarding calls to make sure that you're all set up. So that's just one example. I'm sure other platforms have some options for that, but just something to keep in mind, that support, the support you get is really important too. All right, so now that you're thinking about what you need as far as software goes and what you might need as far as marketing goes, so thinking about what new initiatives you're doing as far as digital advertising, if you need to invest a little bit in your email newsletter service, or if you are doing some mailings, just kind of thinking through what your whole fundraising and marketing spend looks like, because that's really important to incorporate into your budget as well, so that you can then talk through that as, you know, if there are some obstacles related to that, and you need to get some budget approved, then you kind of know what you're working with to advocate for it. So yeah, so in general, just as a recap, when you're thinking about identifying gaps in your resources, you might want to consider really what has met your needs last year. Did you not have enough people last year to really do all the fundraising plans you wanted to? You know, maybe address that with your board, for example. And then what changes are needed for this year? So probably a lot on the software side, to be honest, needs to be changed. So just kind of think through what gaps are currently there preventing you from really moving forward with digital fundraising. Okay, so then when you do identify these gaps, you're going to probably want to take them to your board and your team for approval. So it does involve doing a little bit of homework on your side, but there are some good ways to really advocate for what it is that you need. So one of my top recommendations is to consider using return on investment to inform your decisions. Also, you know, reviewing your full plan with the board. I think when they see your full plan and how all the ways that you're going to be using this new software or whatever it is that you're advocating for, this new part-time staff member, for example, if they really see how they're going to get plugged in and what exactly they're going to do, I think it makes them more likely to say yes. So just as a quick example here, so for example, an investment in of $185 in CauseVox plan for 1 month can help you run a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. This is projected to help you raise about twice as much as just a regular email series, because typically, you know, peer-to-peer raises about twice as much. So with a projected 3,000% return on investment. So if it costs $3 with CauseVox to raise $100, that's 3,000 projected ROI. But you can do that with anything. So whatever it is you're advocating for, think through the exact costs that are going to be involved and what the projected revenue is, and then you get your return on investment. So let's talk a little bit about some action items here. So you want to detail out your overall fundraising budget, what you are planning to spend on fundraising this year. Consider the software at your disposal and what you need to change, and then make a list of solutions to any potential obstacles that you're facing and proposals for budget increases if needed. All right, so now that we're tackling those obstacles, we can then move forward with finalizing your fundraising plan for 2020 and beyond. So once you're done with your goals worksheet, you can then go through and start mapping out your fundraising plan. So again, your fundraising plan is a living document. You're probably going to come back to it and make a bunch of changes throughout the year. So this is kind of your guideline, and it really does help you keep on track with everything. So if something comes up and something changes, you know, come back, update this, and then keep track of the effectiveness of each of your fundraising initiatives in here. So then you're really informed even next year what you want to do as far as fundraising goes. So there's so many different fundraising activities you can plug in. You know, you might want to consider doing Giving Tuesday and incorporating that into your year-end planning. Of course, virtual events, like we've been saying, you know, just even investing more time in your donation page. Really so many opportunities, just even email fundraising, launching maybe some memberships, recurring giving, awareness day options. So there's so much here. I'll like leave this here for a moment, but I recommend coming back and exploring all of the fundraising activities that you can run still throughout this time, even when we're socially distant. And then I also wanted to show you a few of our virtual fundraising ideas. So whether it's just simply doing crowdfunding or peer-to-peer fundraising, live streaming, ungalas or virtual galas, virtual races, even just a simple matching campaign. Virtual game nights have been a big trend as of late. DIY challenges, so like birthday campaigns, are also something I've seen up and running a lot. Social media challenges, virtual happy hours, and paint and sip nights. So there's a lot that you can do virtually. So when you're building out your fundraising plan, you just want to first start out with your fundraising activities list, what you're doing, who the audience is, who exactly are you targeting? Are you targeting the younger members of your community? Are you targeting everyone? But just having a little bit of an idea of what that audience looks like and who you're targeting. And I think breaking it out into segments as much as possible is always really helpful. Any dates that you want. So when are you beginning and ending this fundraising activity? What are your estimated expenses for that particular activity and your income goal, and then any additional notes. So that you want to make mention of, like added benefits, like what you think you're going to get out of this, even if it's not a monetary goal. So then for you, a good next step is to just list out all of those fundraising activities and plug that into your fundraising plan, and then also detailing out goal alignment for that as well. Which pieces of your goals does it actually fit into? And it can be multiple. So you can have fundraising activities that cross over into multiple strategies, basically. Okay, so then some of the fundraising strategies, just as a quick recap. So really recommend optimizing your fundraising page. That can help you both increase conversion rate and gift size. Recurring giving helps build retention rate. Email fundraising actually has a pretty good return on investment, so you might want to think about that when it comes to just a really simple digital fundraising strategy. Of course, peer-to-peer helps you raise twice as much when compared with other types of digital fundraisers like crowdfunding campaigns, because you're basically leveraging your audience to bring in their audience, and yeah, get exposed to a whole new set of people. And then virtual fundraising events, which actually in comparison to in-person events really increases return on investment as well. And then also just, other donor retention strategies like asking for another gift within 90 days of the first one, helps to retain them for the long run, as well as just, simple nurturing strategies as well. So once you think through all of your activities, you actually want to start with Q3 and go through Q3, which is happening now, Q4, so September through the end of the year, and then Q1 and Q2 for next year. So basically start your plan from today. Adding in all those costs that you are projecting, so breaking it out into specific software fees, any fees that are associated with that software. So if there's transaction fees, for example, thinking through, if there's $10,000 and they take 3%, what does that fee actually look like? Postage and mail. So if you do have any mailings and want to still address that community that does give through mail, of course, you still want to continue leaning into that strategy as well. So, what mailing options are you doing alongside digital fundraising, and then adding up those costs, and then of course staff time and hours and sort of how that translates into dollars, etc. So think about that for each of those fundraising activities, and then try your best to estimate your income and then what that net income is going to look like, so that you kind of know what you're going to come away with, hopefully, with each of your fundraising initiative. So it's a little hard right now for a lot of organizations to project income. I know this, where a lot of you are probably starting to try out some completely brand new digital fundraising strategies. So If possible, if you have done maybe even like an email fundraising ask before, try and use that as like maybe a guideline. So let's say you did a series of 4 emails asking for gifts. You know, consider using that, like how much came in through that, and use that as a guideline, and maybe add 10% to the top of that of what you raised as, you know, maybe a goal for a new email fundraising campaign, for example. So if you have any similar activities that you can draw from, I think that's great. Also, when you're moving an in-person event to virtual, you can still use the in-person event, I think, as a guide. It doesn't exactly translate. I think the trend is that you might raise a little bit less when it comes to doing a virtual event than an in-person event, but also you actually take away more money because you're spending less on all of the programming and food and everything else. So try to use any existing activities that you've done in the past as a guideline when you're trying to project your income. And then for any brand new activities, just sort of focus on your SMART goals. So what goals you have already set, and then try your best to basically be informed by strategies and analytics. So if you're aware that maybe for every 100 people your Facebook ad reaches, maybe one of them actually gives, that can be a good sort of benchmark to keep in mind. So then you know that you have to reach 3,000 people to get 30 new donors, for example. So try and also sort of see what benchmarks are out there for whatever fundraising activity you're doing, and sort of use that guideline as to inform your strategy when it comes to projecting the income. Okay, so then think through ways. So once you are, you know, if you are using similar activities from the past as a guideline, just basically there's a column in the fundraising plan for you to plug in those old results, just so that you have that there to work off of and see how much you're looking to increase it by. So if that's applicable for you, feel free to add those in where that can help you strategize. And then there's that goal alignment column. So note which of your micro goals each activity aligns with from your SMART goals worksheet. So should be one of the donor acquisition, retention, and gift growth. Okay, so then you may want to, in your notes, think through what fundraising software you're going to be using, what marketing software you're going to be engaging, what key performance indicators you're going to be using to track the success of this, and we'll get into some key KPIs in just a minute. What your basic ideas are for implementation, and any specific initial tasks you need to take, remaining roadblocks, etc. So, you know, definitely fill in that other column with a lot of ideas and resources, and just basically helping you inform that basic plan. So for you, next step is to list out all of your activities for your fundraising plan for Q3, Q4, Q1 2021, and Q2 2021. So you're probably going to reformat that guide that you download a little bit to align more with these. And then consider thinking through which of these fundraising activities are your biggest priority, because you do want to, you know, have some kind of ranking in your mind where, you know, if you know that if you can only get to one thing a month, what is your top priority, and focus most of your energy on that. So what's going to drive the most results, and sort of prioritize that. But then also think through, if we can get through to these other fundraising activities, these would also be great. So I think just having that in mind as far as your priorities for your activities is really helpful when it comes to building out your fundraising plan. All right, so after each section, each quarter, you should total up your estimated income, costs, and net income, just to make sure that you're on track to meet your major goals for the year. So next up for you is to complete that fundraising calendar and then share and review your SMART goals worksheet and your fundraising calendar with your team and with your board, and that can really help you advocate for the resources that you need as well. And also get their buy-in and approval. So that's really important when it comes to trying anything new, I think. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about measuring your plan's success and adapting wherever needed. So when you're doing any type of fundraising, you're always going to want to pause and evaluate your success. So talked a little bit about KPIs before. So these are just some of the key performance indicators you may want to keep track of. So if you are doing a virtual event, you might want to track just the number of attendees or views for that live stream. Of course, you always want to really track number of new donors. So, you know, for your new donor acquisition, cost per dollar raised, return on investment, and conversion rates, I always recommend. Also, it's not exactly on here, but keeping track of the number of hours that people actually spend doing something is really important as well, just because that can help you see what your return on effort is. So if you're spending a whole month planning a fundraising initiative that only brings in a few $1,000s, you might want to, you know, basically double check to make sure that that's still a good fundraising option for you. Digital fundraising ad conversion. So lots of key performance indicators for you to come back to and assess. And then for each of your activities, you are always going to want to go back and just really look at how much you raised in total. Did that actually meet your goals and your needs? Did you raise more or less than expected? If so, how much? And then any other key performance indicators you're keeping track of. Did your expectations measure up with your estimated budget and income? If so, how off are you? That can help you reassess and plan better for next time as far as estimating your income. And then, of course, with anything, you do want to calculate your ROI. So whenever you're calculating your return on investment, you want to add up the full costs involved in putting together any fundraising activity. So whether there's materials or software and fees and speaker costs and staff time and hours and dollars and more. So first you want to take a look at the total income generated, total up the cost, income minus cost, that gives you your net profit. And then from there, you can calculate the ROI. So total income minus the total cost of your fundraising activity divided by the total cost of your fundraising activity times 100 is your return on investment. So let's say your virtual event raised $150,000 for your organization, but the total cost to put it on was $15,000, so you made $135,000 net profit. So 135,000 divided by 15,000, so that would give you a 900% return on investment, which I think is pretty good. So keep that in mind as you're evaluating the success of each of your initiatives, because it's not necessarily about, you know, oh no, we have to spend $1,000 on a software. That might well be worth it if that software is going to help you get $150,000 brought in. So ROI is really, really important. So here at CauseVox, we see that it costs about $3 to raise $100, where a lot of in-person events previously have cost about between $30 and $50, I would say, to raise $100. That's something that we've seen across the board with a lot of our users that have brought things virtually. So I mentioned this last time, I believe. So Summit Assistance Dogs, they were able to actually engage more people to be virtual table captains than in-person captains for their event, because some people didn't live in the area and now they could still participate. They ended up spending $50,000 less in event costs and then took home over $35,000 more. So that as a whole, their event went from being a 212% return on investment to a 1,600% return on investment. So they increased their return on investment 8 times. So by really lowering their costs, and so they ended up taking home a lot more. So with all of your fundraising initiatives, keep in mind that you do want to pinpoint some KPIs that you're going to keep track of, whatever your activity is, and then measure, like look at that as a measurement and come back to it and evaluate. And then you are going to want to adapt your plan to lean into strategies that drive the highest return on investment and the highest return on effort. So whatever is really working for you, and whatever you're finding, so maybe you do email fundraising and that just knocks it out of the park, you probably want to adjust your fundraising plan to incorporate more email fundraising. But of course there's, you know, so many other things that you can do as far as strategies, and just want to continually reassess to make sure that the strategies that you're doing are actually working for you, and then trying out new strategies to see really what is helping drive the most success, and then, you know, using those insights moving forward. Okay, so then that really brings us to the end of our session today. During our next session, we're just going to be doing that one-on-one coaching session. So you'll want to, if you can, send over your plan ahead of time, and I can take a look and review it, and then have some notes to go over during our one-on-one. You can email support@causevox.com to schedule your session, or you can just email me as well. I will also put a booking link in our follow-up email that will go out probably later today. If you are looking for a software to help you raise more with less effort, I would be happy to chat with you about how CauseVox can work with you, so you can run your donation pages, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising, virtual fundraising, and more in less time with less hassle on our platform. Our donation forms help convert more donors just by being less clunky, and replacing your outdated forms with a really streamlined, easy experience for your donors. Peer-to-peer fundraising, people can set up pages in under 60 seconds, very clutter-free and easy for you to run all of your fundraising on CauseVox when it comes to any digital fundraising. And then crowdfunding, so helps you reach your fundraising goals with less uncertainty. Just, you know, basically easily set up a crowdfunding campaign with all your branding to meet your needs. I have a little secret for you guys. So if you are interested in learning more about the about virtual fundraising, so our courses are actually going to go on sale for 50% off next week. So normally $115, it's going to be $57.50 to attend the virtual ultimate virtual fundraising course on demand. I'll make sure to include the link in the follow-up email for that. So that will start on Monday, and you can get that course half off. I recommend it if you liked the templates, and if you liked the conversation that we had Tuesday and today. This course actually has its own template that walks you through step-by-step how to plan a virtual event. So it's very detailed and really can help you get there and get that virtual fundraising event planned quickly and easily. So I recommend it. Again, if you're interested in CauseVox, you can always check out causevox.com or reach out to me and we can schedule a demo. And so I just want to spend, I know, again, we're a little bit over time, but I do want to get to your questions. So let's see. So any questions that have come in so far, feel free to send in your questions now. I'm going to open up the Q&A panel. All right, so Karine asks, what is the difference between donor retention, engagement goals, and, donor retention and engagement goals / activities? I think donor retention and donor engagement are actually pretty similar. I mean, donor engagement is just building on those donor relationships, and when you build on donor relationships, you're more likely to retain them. So yeah, I would say, like, sort of going back to those 3 ways to grow, your fundraising. So if you're thinking about doing donor retention, engagement strategies can help you increase and work towards that donor retention goal, if that makes sense. So just one example of a donor engagement strategy is doing like a welcome email series after a donor gives the first time. So Julia asked, what is the best crowdfunding website? So I'm going to be honest, I'm probably a little biased. I think CauseVox is, but yeah, over the last 5 years, I've worked with thousands of organizations to help them set up their crowdfunding on CauseVox. If you're interested in seeing what that looks like, I'd be happy to share with you some examples, but yeah, I mean, really, it has all of the sort of trademarks of crowdfunding. But I think the thing that makes us a little different is that we've invested a lot in the conversion rate on the donation form. So we've made sure that that giving process is really easy and seamless and mobile optimized, as well as we allow you to brand the page so it's really your own look and feel. Like a lot of crowdfunding sites have a lot of their own branding on it, or it's just hard to change some things and work with it. We try to make it as easy as possible for you to set up a crowdfunding campaign using our platform, and as easy as possible to brand it according to your needs with no IT required. If you want to chat a little bit, I'd be happy to show you, even like set up a conversation one-on-one to show you how to set up crowdfunding on CauseVox if you're interested. All right, any more questions? So I would also love your feedback. So if you liked the class today, let me know. If you still have some questions, I would love to answer them, whether it's on our conversation today or in our one-on-one. And really, if there's anything else I can do, please feel free to reach out. I would love to stay in touch. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for attending the class today, and I will be in touch to schedule our one-on-one as well as follow up with all of those resources and the recordings. Okay, well, thanks everyone and have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.